All right, guys. I think that we are live. It's saying that I'm live. Hopefully, I don't have this open another browser to where it's going to get messed up. As you guys know, the internet bill is late. We haven't paid it, so if it cuts in, cuts out, you know the usual deal here. I My wife takes care of that bill. I don't have any control over it. Thanks very much for joining. I have a special guest on tonight, Andy. I've not had him on before. Andy with the Sports Card Investigator channel. He's in the background. First off, I'm just going to say hey to Alex, Global Sports Card Investor, CA, what's up? Brett and Ziggy in the house. All right. Let me go ahead and bring out, if I can add you, Andy. Hold on a second. All right, there he is.
Hello.
Doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. This is exciting. My
Absolutely.
first live ever. Oh man.
Is it your first live?
It is my first live show ever. This is exciting.
I'm like Oprah. I get the exclusive.
That's
nice.
it. That's it.
Well, yeah, thanks for joining me. I know we have been, for those that are watching, I mean, I've been kind of texting with Andy back and forth on Instagram a little bit. I've been watching his channel probably since day one, and I really, really enjoyed it. And so I reached out to him, asking him if he wanted to maybe come on at some point. And so I'm excited that this is coming to fruition. How's your week been so far?
It's what is it, Wednesday? So far, so good. I even took a nap, so I'd be awake for this. So I really appreciate it.
Now, are you fully retired, or is this?
No, I retired about 4.5 years ago, and then I worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office as an investigator for a while. And then I joined a company that does like DEA compliance work around the country. So when COVID hit, it kind of went down because I used to travel and we do lectures and talk around. But it's been slow, but hopefully in the next few weeks, few months, maybe at the latest, get back into a little bit. But it gives me more time to do this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with that. So is this, we'll get into cards in a minute, but as far as YouTube is concerned, is this kind of your first foray into YouTube? Have you had a channel before or had a podcast before or anything else? Is this your first time in?
Yeah, this is my first time in. In fact, I think we've done 25 videos, give or take, in the last 8 months. When COVID hit, I was talking to my son and we started looking at, like, we always look at all the YouTube content creators and stuff like that, especially with cards, because it's what I'm interested in. And my son actually said, you should do a YouTube channel and just be you. Like, don't do this stuff where you go on and tell people what to buy or what not to buy and that kind of thing. And just use your experience that you've had in your career. And I'm an older guy. I'm older than a lot of guys out there. Although I know I don't look it, but I am. And I figured, like, my experience and just what I learned, especially through DEA, because I really attribute a lot of what I do when I look at cards specifically. We can get into that later. I use what I learned with DEA. It's a particular set of skills that I've developed over my career that it blends very nicely into it. And there are a couple other guys, Jordan from Sports Card Analytics and the Sports Card PT, we're talking about getting into it. And we kind of like jabbed each other a little bit to get into it. And we started it. And it's an evolving process for me. I tried to really do my best when I come out and do a show. I only do one once a week. It's a whole process. I go through an outline with my son. We go through topics and we do different things of what would be most beneficial. And I'm really envious of guys like you and Mike, Ziggy, and some of these other guys that you guys put out some really great content. And I just don't know how you guys have the stamina to do it on such a basis of just a continuous basis.
Well, I love your channel. It's exactly, and your son was right, kind of just come out, be yourself, be authentic. But that's what I really love about your channel from day one is there's not another channel that's quite like it. And that's one thing that I really like about a lot of the card channels is we can all be talking about the exact same topic, but we all have our different background, different angle at it or whatever. Absolutely. And it never gets old for me. So I really liked kind of your take on it, your background and what that added to, what you were talking about.
No, I appreciate that. And that's what I try to bring. I mean, again, for the guys that know my channel, and I'm really so incredibly happy and blessed to be in a position that we are. We started about 8 months ago. We're over 900 subscribers. And my son always says, don't look at the subscribers. Subscribers don't matter. Just do what you're doing and people will learn and people will get out of it. And that's all I try to do is just give advice. And if it helps you, great. I get a lot of messages on Instagram afterwards about some shows. So I know a lot of people are listening and that makes me feel good. And that's what I'm here to do.
No, absolutely. Now, do you have certain goals in place for your channel, or are you just kind of taking it, one day at a time, just kind of doing your thing?
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep up with things that happen. Like when we have like the PSA increase, I know a lot of people will start saying, like, well, what are we going to do about that? And then I'll come on and say, look, nothing really changes. We're still going to evaluate cards the same way. Well, are we going to go look at other grading companies? Well, I have no idea, because I just can't say go to SGA or B, or HGA. I can't do that. And in good conscience, I wouldn't. It's a process to see because, hey, although PSA is now triple for a bulk submission than it was last year, it may still be the way to go, but we have to adjust what we do.
Sure.
When we first started talking a while ago, Top Shot, that just came out of nowhere. So I try to keep current. I just try to do what I think is on people's minds. The next video I have coming out, I go on a little bit of a rant, which is kind of fun. But also I say, like, now that the NBA season is going into the second half, here are some things that I'm going to watch for. This is my process. These are some guys that I'm not telling you to buy, but just to give you an example of what to look for going forward and try to do that. And then also we did a whole thing about LaMelo Ball where, when was a good time to buy him? Did he hit his floor? Did he not? I'm not telling you to buy him, but if you're interested in something like that, these are the type of things to look for.
I like it. So let's shift over now back to the card piece. So let's kind of do that origin story, how you got into it. Have you always been in it? Did you come back to it? How did that come about?
Well, I think like everyone, again, I'm a little bit older than everyone else, but you have 2 young kids. So I'm sure, you're getting them into it at a certain point. And that's what with me. It was funny. I was talking to my son the other day. I was looking through an old photo album. I don't know if people know those exist, but yeah, there's
like a physical photo album?
Photos on them, right?
Yeah.
And there was a picture that came up, and I sent it to my son, and it was my dad, me, and Tyler at the kitchen table when I was stationed in Michigan, ripping packs, right? And that's what it's all about, having fun like that. Now, those days are over, and I could go on. We could talk about that too, but, I'm not going to go buy a $1,200 box of hoops to rip open, and I talk to, that's a whole different subject matter. But that's it for, with cards, and my son and I, and we have a close relationship as it is, but this is something that even brings us closer as cards. Growing up, hey, always with cards, and I remember sticking cards in my bike spokes, right, to make it sound like a motorcycle, and then we'd go around and we tried to collect cards, and who's this guy and that guy, and I was going through a box the other day of just old cards, but they were loved, so they're not really in that great of a shape anymore. And as my son got older, he became really, really close friends with Joe Dumar's nephew, and we were in Michigan.
Oh, wow.
So he would collect cards because he would go to the games early, go to the family room, and have all the cards signed by the players. So that became our hunt to get all these, all the players. Wow. And then as time went on, we continued to collect. And then over the last 3 or 4 years, we all know what happened with cards. I mean, it became just an explosion of not just collecting for fun, but for people to actually make some extra money on. And then I became interested in it to see, like, well, is this possible? Is this something that I could do to really hone my skills to find cards and then find a process of buying cards, grading them, and then reselling them? And that's kind of like what evolved over the last 25 years.
Yeah, were you so I got back into the hobby 3 years ago after being out for 25 years. Were you kind of blown away by the whole third-party grading thing? Because when I went on eBay, I was trying to figure out, like, why are some cards in these like plastic slabs and others are not? Like, it was totally foreign to me. I was trying to figure it out, and then trying to figure out, okay, which company, I thought that BGS, just because it had the Beckett name on it,
Right.
I'm only buying BGS. Like I'm not buying. I don't know what PSA is. I'm not interested in that. I know Beckett. I'm going to buy Beckett stuff, but that whole thing it was so intriguing to me. Just the different price points with the different grades. How was it for you?
The same. I mean, when we were looking at with cards, we looked through cards. We go, oh my god, we got an autograph, so that's going to be worth a lot of money. And like the base cards back then were like we just put them to the side. Who wants base cards? It's that kind of thing. Now, we can get a whole conversation about you could buy a not even a Zion or a Ja, but you could buy like a middle of the road guy's base card. His rookie card. It could be worth 120, 100, like a Cam Reddish, right? It's $200 6 months ago. Now it's down to 80, but that's a $2 card, a $3 card. And it was the same thing. And that's kind of like when I looked at it, how can you really make the most out of collecting? And of course it's grading. And I was the same way. PSA, but you think Beckett, the Beckett name, it's famous, but then it comes into all comparisons and then trying to figure out what is the best makes most financial sense. But yeah, I got turned on to grading a little while ago, and it's just something that it's what I do. It's what I do now. But now, what are we going to do, right? With the advent of the new grading, and now with PSA, we mentioned it before, raising their prices, it's going to have to be an analysis and a research project to see where we go going forward. And what's going to happen with PSA prices? You can already see that some of those cards are already jumping in price just because of the grading.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's stay on that for a second. I mean, have you made a decision as to what you're going to do, or are you just kind of like sitting back, waiting for the cards that you already have to come back in, or have you made a decision on your strategy? You still kind of ironing it out?
Yeah, I mentioned this in before, and I think we might have talked about it. I think it was the worst kept secret in the hobby that PSA was going to raise their prices. Mm-hmm. So I sent everything I had like just waiting to PSA. So I probably have over 1,000 cards in PSA now waiting to be graded. And about right before they changed, where they got rid of the economy, before it all the whole really big boom hit, I sent in a bunch. My theory was I'll use economy grades on cards because I'll get them back within 4 months. And then that went out the window because I got rid of economy. So now my process or my theory for grading is really simple. It never changes, okay? So for PSA, if you're going to use PSA, that's fine. You get the card, the price of the raw card, add the grading. So the minimum is going to be $25. So let's say you pay $10 for the card, $25 for the PSA grade. That's $35. So if a PSA 9 of that card, or you can figure out what a PSA 9 will give you a 25 to 30% bump on that card, then I'll grade them all day. Because I think with the way I grade, I'm averaging between a 65 and a 70% gem mint rate, which is really good. But I'm figuring maybe it'll drop to 50%. If that happens, then I'm good. But you can't go in and buy a card that's $1, graded for 25. Like, I'll give you an example. A Cam Reddish card now. Okay, I would grade those all day if a guy that I would like, just from the price. He went from a $200 card to a $76 card, but his PSA 9 is a $30 card.
Yeah.
So we're in trouble if we're getting back mostly dimes, because then we're losing money, right? And when I grade, I do a minimum grade of a 9 because anything of an 8, it's not going to do us any good.
That makes sense. Okay. Now, how are you feeling? This is kind of an interesting time for basketball cards, because I know just from watching your channel, I know that kind of prospecting in basketball is really kind of your niche. You and your son really enjoy it. He's big, and you guys are both big into basketball. You're following a lot of the prospects coming up, but like not even just the prospects, but it seems like even like the Trey Youngs and the Jason Tatums of the world, who are not really, I mean, they're somewhat proven prospects. I mean, they're young, but they've shown something. Even those guys, I mean, if you look at their pricing kind of compared to where it's been over the last 12, 18 months, it's actually lower than it probably has been the last 12, 18 months.
Even a guy like Zion, right?
There's Zion, yeah, and he's actually playing really good.
Again, I'm not going to break any rules. I'm not going to say he's undervalued or anything like that. But I mean, look at what he does, right? Compared to other guys. I always say this on my channel for you guys who haven't watched is I don't know anything. I don't know anything about scouting professional basketball players. I love basketball. I'll research, I'll watch, I'll listen, but I look to other guys that know what they're talking about. And there's a guy that I mentioned, Rashad Phillips, who, you know, he's a friend of mine. He was a coach for my son in basketball. Now he's a professional scout. He has his own podcast. He's really done really well for himself. This guy was on Ja Morant when he was in college. So I knew about Ja Morant before anyone knew about Ja Morant. Trae Young. If you look at Rashad, Trae Young sends them, sneakers, and they talk all the time. That's what you guys have to look for if you guys are interested in speculating about players, because there's guys now that no one's even talking about that are of this year's class that next year you will know about. But right now we're all listening about LaMelo or Anthony Edwards or some of these guys, but there's some other guys. I actually mentioned one in the next video that piqued my interest. So it's just things that we have to look for from sources that know. And I say this all the time. When a content creator says, I am buying this guy because no, he doesn't. No, they look at price charts and they can see what price charts are. And if the guy is a really great player and the price has hit a bottom, absolutely. If that's your guy, then it's a time to buy. But when they say, I like a guy because he's got good skills or he's got good talent, where are you getting that from? Because that's what's important to me. Because only a handful of these guys are going to be here next year, and only a handful of the guys last year are here this year. And now you look at guys now where, like, it's Fisher cut bait time, right? Kobe White, who's a great player, he's not starting anymore, right? Guys that are just like continuing on. Brandon Clark, who I talk about, PJ Washington, these are all guys that either they're going to find that niche or they're going to make that next step. But that's where the money is made, to try to figure out, with doing the correct research, of which guy is going to be that next guy to really do well.
Where's kind of your sweet spot as far as that goes? I mean, and what I mean by that is, if you look at, like, Michael Jordan or some of these guys don't win championships until they're 27, 28, 29 years old. So, obviously, with these young guys, who knows? I mean, the Devin Bookers and the Tatums, these guys are all under 25 years old. What's kind of do you have kind of a sweet spot that you're thinking about? Like, I want them to be at a certain point by 25, or do you not kind of think in those terms?
I don't care. I don't care one bit. All I care about, and this is it, people are going to say, oh, okay. When it comes to this, I'm mercenarial. I look to see who is going to do well, even in the short term, and get their cards graded or get them going, and then sell their cards for a profit. I see videos all the time, right, of people saying, oh, I sell too early, or I did this, or I lost money. I don't even look back. I grade, I sell, and I move on. If I'm making, 6 times, 8 times, 10 times on a card, I'm very happy with that. I'm not going to keep that card for 4 years like Admiral Schofield or someone who thinks, oh, he's going to be the next big thing, and he's not even in the league anymore. I'm not going to take that chance.
That's actually a really good point, because a lot of times it's like, you don't necessarily need a guy to be the next LeBron. It's like, we don't need to find the next LeBron or the next Jordan. You just need them to have a good season, or have a good couple of years, or one good year, or whatever. And then you can kind of sell through that if you want to.
It's the hot guy. I hate to say, oh, that doesn't sound really well, right? But it's the good basketball player at the time. Last year, I get a kick out of this too, right? You could have picked any rookie in the top 15 or 20. And I talk about this too. What I do now, starting in, is start looking at the odds for rookie of the year. Usually get 10 or 15 guys, right? And you just start to look what other people are thinking of how these rookies are going to go. If you looked last year, you could have picked any of those guys, got them graded, and sold them at 10x or more, probably 100x in some of those. You could have picked those cards up for 2. You could have picked up RJ Barrett's for $5 or $6, and even now he's selling for $180. So in the short term, that's all I look at. And some people, I'm not, there's some cards you can see behind me, some cards that my son and I will collect. But for the most part, it's getting those cards in, getting them graded, turning them over, and looking on to the next class.
Yeah. Okay. Now I have seen you show football cards, I think, on your channel before. Are you also, is that more PC stuff, or are those
Yeah,
also kind of
I got
speculative?
rid of my Carson Wentz cards because I'll never talk or I'll never want to see him again. In fact, I sent one to I was so good. I sent the card to Brett from Stacking Slabs because he's a big Colts fan. So I said, hey, he's adding to his collection. I go, you're going to get another one because I don't want him in my collection anymore, right? But they're football, not maybe a little bit. I mean, we'll look and quarterbacks, right? That's all I know. I mean, I can't speculate on those guys because I'm just not. If I said wide receivers or what? No, it's just young quarterbacks. Like I'm interested. Like sometimes Herbert or Burrow or those guys. But not so much. I'm a one-trick pony. I'm basketball, but I will listen to other people. Jordan from Sportscard Analytics, he's a baseball guy, and he'll every once in a while he'll say, "Hey, take a look at this guy." That's good enough for me. So I'll go pick up some cards and throw them in for grading. But no, I'm pretty much anyone you talk to is basketball all the way, and current basketball, right?
So on that note, he asks, are you currently watching anyone in the NCAA right now? Any prospects coming up?
Yeah, there's some guys, Ziggy, that I'll mention on the show coming up. But NCAA, I have been really not watched much at all this year. I'm a Temple University graduate, and we are horrible. We are horrific. I think we had 5 or 6 wins this year, and it just breaks my heart. But I'll watch the NCAA tournament, and and that actually it brings to a good point. A lot of the rookies this year, you're going to see them now starting to kind of find their groove and start coming into their own, because this year, like no other, with COVID, they had no NCAA tournament. They had no summer camp. They had no training really. So they were really now just getting used to the grind. And you'll see some guys now starting to really excel. I mean, LaMelo and Anthony Edwards, of course, but Emmanuel Quickly in New York, he just got his starting gig and he's doing well. And there's some other guys, but it'll be interesting now to see as we continue on, how these guys develop.
Are you kind of, speaking of LaMelo, and not that I watched a ton of him, just highlights or anything, but I just thought he was all hype coming in. I was like, all right, this is just another a Ball family type, he's going to get all this attention because he's in that family, but he's actually really good, or he's been good. Like I've been really surprised.
He's really good. And I have to admit it, you listen to the dad and LaMelo's going to be this and LaMelo and the dad kind of turns you off, but he was 100% right. And before the draft even started, Rashad, who I talk about, I mean, there's no secret. This guy knows what he's talking about. He actually put out his top guys and he rates them. He rates every single guy and he rates them on a really interesting scale. He'll rate them on role player or, shooter and he had one guy as a superstar and it was LaMelo Ball. And if you look at what this guy's doing, I mean, there's no denying it. I mean, he's the real deal. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how he goes. And it's going to be real interesting to see what his Prism cards go for, right? Because if anything will tell us, I mean, his Prism rookie card could go for, I was joking around and said it could be $1,000 card.
I think it will.
Because I said if the breakers want to make money, they should charge admission to watch these breaks because they're going to be just, first of all, the price to get in is going to be astronomical for a Charlotte break, but I just can't imagine. But it'll be fun. I mean, it'll be fun.
It's crazy. Yeah, no, I think that you're right. I think the Prism basketball, I think that card is going to be an expensive one for sure. It'll probably be
anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000, and who's going to go do? I mentioned the video. Who's going to be tempted, right? I mean, to buy a box of $2,500 to go get that golden ticket, like literally a lottery ticket. I mean, if you get a 101 or a 1 of 10. I can't go right to the auction, right? Right to, drive it or fly it to PSA, get it graded and send it right to the auction.
Yeah. And how many people are going to buy it and hold it, kind of the sealed wax game, because they've seen years past. Although I feel like a lot of that secondary price is baked in now. You know, when you're buying a $3,000 box, like Panini's already factored in that you're trying to flip that box later, you know?
Yeah, the days of getting them for $200-300. I mean, Ziggy will tell you the days of getting those $200-300 boxes are over. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's definitely baked in when they're selling. That Prism box, in years past would be a I don't know, $400 box or not maybe, and now Panini's going to sell it at $2,500. So
Yeah.
they're making their money.
I remember too, I mean, it was probably 2019, but Prism basketball, maybe it was football, it was all their products really. I remember the day that it was coming out, the hobby box would hit the website and then people would be complaining about the bots, coming in. Everyone would be trying to order it. And that's when Panini had shifted it, over to the Dutch auction or whatever. But I remember those days too, where people were just like, yeah, I got a box, or I got one in the cart, but it didn't go through. My credit card didn't go through, or whatever.
All the time. I remember sitting in an airport. I was probably 2 years ago, and I told my kid, I go, I'm going to go buy a box. So I think it was National Treasure, one of these, but it was like 700 or 800. It was a lot of money, but it was like, I'm going to do this. This is my bucket list. I'm going to do this. And I went in, I got it. I thought something was wrong because I got it so quick. Like, how would this even happen? But back then, you could get them. Even last year, there was a point. But now with the bots and everything else, it's horrible. And even the local card stores, I mean, they're getting squeezed too. So I feel bad for like the dads who want to go to Target or Walmart and buy it for their kids. And my son sent me a picture. He went to Target to pick something up, and there was just a line of people waiting for cards, and I'm like, yeah. What have we come to, right?
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. I don't even bother. I don't even go to try anymore. Like I used to just drop in, like when I was in Walmart, I'd be like, oh, I'll go check out the cards. But now it's like, it's not even worth even walking to that side of the store.
Yeah. I'll tell the story. My wife bought a prime rib. But the guy we didn't know how much it weighed. So I went to Target, or I think it was Target, to pick up a scale. And as I just walked by the cards, and there was like 2 lonely boxes of NBA Hoops Premium there. And I had to look at them because I thought, oh man, someone probably returned these, went through them and returned them, but they were completely sealed up. And it was like the heavens opened up, and I actually got them, and that made my day. But those days are, forget it. Crazy.
All right, let's shift over to the DEA days and kind of how you're tying that into cards. And feel free to tie in a story or two, or you don't have to, obviously. You might not even be able to talk about it. That's perfectly fine too. But how are you kind of using that past career and using that as you process all this stuff?
Well, that's why I'm doing this. And I look back and I'm thinking, like, what are all the times with DEA that I've learned that I can bring into the cards? And the big thing with DEA was a DEA agent's lifeblood was made with informants. And informants would come in either one of 2 reasons. They would either be arrested, they'd call, I have information, or mainly it was because they wanted to make some money. So they would call and say, hey, I have some information, and you would talk to them and they would give you the information. And then you would have to vet that information to see how true it was. And then what you would do is you would work backwards, right? So they would say, Vinny Boombots is selling, kilos out of the back door, or whatever it may be. And then you would have to go and do all your investigation and try to figure out if this guy was telling the truth. Well, what I do with cards is I kind of treat each player like someone told me, hey, I think this guy is going to be good. And then I work backwards. And then I try to figure out what is in his background. What is he doing now? What is his position with the team? What is his position with the coach? Does this coach talk about him? Is he getting starting minutes? Is he getting, what is his position? What is his contract? Whatever it is. And then from there, I get all the facts together. And then either I go on with the case, which I go on and we look on and we look to buy this guy, or we like, no, it's just not going to work. And we cut our losses and we move on. So a lot of the thing, I actually did a video about researching sports cards. It was one of the first videos we did. I thought it was really funny, where I played like 5 different characters, and a guy comes in, he gives information, and basically, and I kind of like I look back at it now, it's kind of a little cringeworthy, but it's actually pretty funny where the guy comes in and he's like, and this has a long backstory, but say like, guy walks in and I'm like, well, who do you like? And he's like, I like Marvin Bagley. I'm like, you like Bagley? I'm like, well, it's Bagley. He's like, yeah, Bagley, man. He's really good. I go, why do you like Bagley? Well, his cards are really shiny and he's got a lot of swag. I'm like, what? What is swag? Or is that something that we look for? And then basically, as DEA would do, we have a research, we have agents, we have analytics, and then I basically have each department look at the card and see like what it is, and then we have a decision at the end whether we're going to go with Bagley or not. But I just try to use my investigative techniques, and I always say that I think it makes me better because it's like my OCD compared with my investigative background makes me kind of dangerous. But it just makes me think and go through all the, make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted to ensure that before I pull the trigger on a guy, it's a calculated risk because no one knows for sure. And if they do, they're not telling you the truth. No one can tell you for sure, but you have to be comfortable with everything that you've learned. And if you take a loss, you take a loss, but you give it your best shot.
Now, let's say you zero in on a player. So, okay, you've done your research, you like this player. Do you typically, Prism obviously is kind of it's the most sought after, that's the one that most people would want, I guess you could say, if I could say that. Do you go for, mainly just Prism, or do you also look at, Optic and Select and all the stuff?
That's a great question. I talk about this too, and Jordan from Sports Analytics, my son, and Chris, we talk about this because there's a lot of overlooked sets. Ziggy will chime in on this too. There's a lot of overlooked sets out there. When Chronicles came out, people were like, "Oh, it's garbage," right? Well, if you look at some of those Chronicle cards now with John Morant, like his Luminance cards, I was picking those cards. My son actually, I have to give credit to my son on this. We knew that John Morant was going to win Rookie of the Year. And anyone who knew anything knew John Morant was going to win Rookie of the Year before he won. And why did we know that? If you look at the odds, he was like, you bet $100 to win $5. It was just going to happen, right? And I remember watching a video where a guy was saying, well, Zion, if he comes back, Zion wasn't going to win. He was not going to win Rookie of the Year. Sorry. It was going to be Morant. So my son said, hey, Morant cards are expensive, the Prism cards and everything else, but his Chronicle cards now are cheap. They're just being overlooked. So he bought tons of John Morant Chronicles, and then he buys them raw and then he flips them, right? So I started looking at that too, and I bought a lot of his Luminance cards and some of the pink Chronicles and some of the numbers and stuff like that. That's an example. It still has, and Jordan, we talk about this. It still has a rookie shield on it, right? So you could pick those cards up. I don't even know what they are. Last time I looked, for $5 or $6.
Wow!
And then you grade them for $9, and they're going for $150, $200. Even if they're $100, even if they're $75, it's still a win-win situation. Revolution is another really, I think.
I love Revolution.
I like Revolution a lot. And I in my next video, I'll say it now because people make fun of me. Because I think I said Pokemon instead of Pokemon. I got ripped for that. And then I think I mentioned a LaMelo, his Galactic. I think I'm going back to my Galactica days. So I said, oh, his LaMelo Galactica. What that raw card sold for $4,000, and they had one up to $5,000 or $6,000. Those used to be very, very reasonable cards. Now even those are getting out of hand. But you could have bought John Morant, any of those cards, Revolution cards, for very reasonable. That's now Revolution's tough because it's a tough grade because they're a little bit thinner. They're real, I call it sparkly or shiny, how the card surface is. So the corners are real tough on those. So sometimes you look and I don't know if that's white or that's the way the sparkle is. And, you have to really look. But Chronicles, Revolution. I mean, even there's a lot of cards out there where if you look at the right players, you could still do well.
Yeah, that was like the last Luca rookie card, I feel like, outside of the Chronicle stuff, but I picked up a bunch of his PSA graded Revolution rookie cards when they were about 100 to 175 bucks. They were hanging around there, and even after kind of like Prism and Optic had moved up, those were the last ones outside of like Chronicle, some of those other sets. And then those went up too. But and you're right. I mean, there's the one thing I guess I don't like about the Revolution, how it goes like Astro and Galactic. I like that, but you can't tell a huge difference between like Chinese New Year, Astro, Groove. Like if you're just looking at it, unless it's on the label, unless it's on like the PSA label, I have no idea.
When I first started doing this, I would ask because with me it was I think okay, the Prism card, they're real easy. But now there's so many parallels, and is this the purple wave, or is this the purple this, or this the red? It's really difficult. And like you're right with the Revolution, they're very similar in a lot of ways. You know what another set was that was kind of overlooked is Status. I remember buying some the Luca Status cards that were really inexpensive. Now even they're up there, but there's some hidden gems. You just got to look.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Have you didn't Revolution, I think Revolution Basketball just came out, the new set.
It did.
I haven't even looked how expensive it is, is it like
$400, $399, $400 for a box.
That's a bargain nowadays.
Yeah, I was saying that too. It's you can buy your $399 Contenders. I think I saw $799 pre-sales. My memory escapes me, but anything under $400, it's like maybe I'll just buy it and rip it, because it's one of those fun things that you can do. And I will tell you this, and people ask me all the time, if you can afford it and you want to go out and buy a box and once in a while and rip it, by all means. But if you want to be in this industry to make money, you got to just buy singles. I've had a lot of guys DM me and say, I bought a box of hoops for $319. Imagine it was like $320, $330, $400 for a box of NBA hoops, right? And they go, I pulled I pulled one LaMelo, one Anthony Edwards. What should I do with the rest of the cards? Donate them. I mean, they're not. You know what I mean? It's just it breaks my heart sometimes to have to tell people that these cards just aren't. Don't go for boxes to try to hit the lottery. It's just not going to work.
On that note too, what's kind of your overall thought? I'm not going to ask like the what inning are we in question, because I think that question is horrible. But what's kind of your outlook? Do you think that we could have some kind of hobby fatigue set in at some point where prices kind of come, retreat back a little bit? Or do you see it just kind of, keep on doing its thing? Obviously nobody knows, but speculating.
Yeah. I don't see it slowing down. You hear Vegas Dave where it's going to come crashing down, and then Gary V's has a different point of view, and then everyone, you can ask 10 people, they're going to say it. But my fear is there's so many new people coming into the hobby, and, they're listening to people that maybe don't have their best interest at heart sometimes, and they're going to lose a lot of money. I've seen it. I've had people message me and say, I'm not sure what I should do. But as far as your question, I don't see it slowing down. I just see the hype continue to go. Will it? I think everything cycles eventually. We might, maybe, are we at the top of the crest, or are we going towards the top? I don't know. But do I think the days of $120 Prisms boxes? I can't see that anytime in the future. Unless something horrible happens, financially or whatever else. And now everyone's getting, $1,400 stimulus, checks. Right. You might see another little boost there coming in. So I don't know. It'll be interesting, but I wouldn't even guess. But do I think it's going to come down anytime soon? I don't.
Now I'm going to hit you with the most important question of the night. How do you feel about graded starting lineups?
I have no idea.
Yeah, people always joke with me because I've been kind of zagging a little bit on the
Oh,
starting.
I know you collect starting lineups. I should send you one. I have like I have the last game. Oh, you want to tell how old I am? Oh my God, this is gonna be. I was at the last game. People are going to start Googling. I was at the last game at Connie Mack Stadium. Okay, that was before they built Veterans Stadium. And I remember when I was like, I don't even know how old I was, but we couldn't get out of the parking because everyone parked in. You know, like it was no parking on the street, so everyone parked in. And I just remember people throwing chairs over the stadium because they were trying to collect anything they possibly could.
Wow.
But I was with my grandfather and my father, and we have the starting lineups from that game. So but I know you're starting. Like, hey, man, you might start a new fad. Starting lineups might be it. You're grading everything.
I saw somebody with concert tickets getting graded, and that actually kind of makes sense. But it's like there's so many things. I just feel like it's endless. You know, all these kind of heirloom, collectible type things. I think it's all
the last concert of someone, like you're at the last Queen concert, or you know the last Eagles concert that will never be the last Eagles concert. You know,
right.
Who knows, right?
The Rolling Stones are immortal, you know. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Hold on. Let me go back here. Let's see. Anybody have any questions in the chat for Andy, the Sports Card Investigator? Let me also break in here too. If you are watching and you have not seen Andy's channel yet, Sports Card Investigator is his channel. Definitely check him out. He is just about to cross over 1,000 subscribers, so let's get him there. Head on over to his channel and hit that sub button. He puts out really good stuff, and he has a unique angle that's really enjoyable to watch. All right, let me see if we've got any questions. I've been totally ignoring the chat here, so sorry, guys. Hello to John, JPO Art. Good to see you, buddy. Talking modern cards. I know I've been on kind of a vintage kick for a little while. I buy modern cards. You know what? I don't even know if this is a good move, but I've been buying Jamal Murray, and I think it's just because it's like the price point with the player upside. I like the kid. Who knows if he's going to ever, you know, him and the Joker, if they're going to get over the hump. But I'm thinking in a post LeBron world, I'm hoping that those guys can make something happen here.
You never know.
What's that?
No, you never know.
The Nuggets, they're a good young team, but who? I mean, can they stay together? I mean, there's all sorts of question marks.
It's going to be interesting too. Like, kind of change a little bit. The trade deadline coming up. Who's going to move?
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so that's going to be real interesting if Victor Oladipo moves, or you know what my Sixers do. I was watching; they were playing the Bucks, and I was sure they're going to blow this lead. I think they just went into overtime, so we'll have to see what happens. LaMelo hoops. You know what? I talk about that in the next video. Go look. I mean, if you're looking at Card Ladder or whatever, you know, you're looking at, go take a look. Market Movers, Card Ladder, so whatever. He kind of went to he hit a low of about $22, which looked like his floor. Then he edged up a little tiny bit, and now he's hovering around that $20, $21, $22 range. So we'll have to see, especially when Prism comes out. The thing too is everyone skips over to the new series of cards, and sometimes you get that little break, you know?
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's a lack of product that's kind of keeping that, you know, that price up? Like you said, once Prism Optic comes, does it kind of sink that hoops price a little bit? I'm wondering.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What I noticed for eBay too is a lot of guys who never dealt with cards before go buy a box, or they so happen to get a box, or they think they're going to make money and they buy a box, they put them on eBay. Look for those. If you're interested, like in a LaMelo, go there, look for guys like that, and then look at their feedback and look what else they're selling. If they're selling just like a hoops pack or something like that, try to make them an offer. Sometimes you'll get lucky. It works. Trust me. It's an interesting thing now because people are just going in and trying to flip them real quick. CSG is interesting. I'm going to do an experiment with CSG coming up. I saw the LeBron sold for $95,000. There's a couple other cards that they had. They're interesting. I sent in, and on the next video I'm going to talk a little bit about this, but I'm going to do an experiment. I sent in LaMelo hoops that I thought really looked the best. I spent some extra money, and I sent them to PSA for an expedited grade. I spent $150 to do it. I also sent it to CSG. So I'm going to wait till they both come back. We'll put them on, and let's see how they compare. Hey, maybe they're it. Maybe it's HGA. Maybe it's BGS. Maybe it's going to be GMA. I don't know, but someone's got to break in because
I mean, another thing,
give, right?
I guess another thing to think about too. I was just thinking while you were talking about it. I've heard that SGC is also hitting their turnaround times. I don't know if that's just all their orders, some of their orders. I don't know the story, but I guess like my question is if CSG, and SGC, let's say they're hitting their turnaround times, 25 days is 25 days or whatever, close to it, and the cost to grade is less than what you would pay at PSA. So maybe you're not getting PSA prices,
right?
But even if you're getting half of PSA, you're still making out. I mean, that's also kind of an interesting strategy.
And that's what I'm experimenting with. $150 grade for PSA, okay, to a $40 grade for CSG. And CSG, you can either go $40 or you get subgrades, you have to add 10, okay?
Yeah.
If the LaMelo card, I saw a LaMelo card, PSA 10. I don't know if it was real or not. We talk about this too. I think it was $1,300 or $1,400 for a PSA 10 LaMelo hoops. That's more than crazy, right? So, but if that comes back, you're paying say a $100 or $100 grade for that. It comes back 13x, but a CSG comes back, 6 or 7x, but you're only paying $40. You have to do the math, and that's why I always say we have to look at the financial, scenario and see if it's worth it or not. Also, I put in as I said, a ton of cards with PSA. I'm not going to see them for a year, right?
Yeah.
If some of these guys that I put in, they might not even be around in a year, right? So if you want to get these cards back earlier, you're going to have to maybe look at other possibilities, and that's something we have to look at going forward.
Yeah, you might have mentioned HGA. I see opinions all over the place on HGA. I see people that love HGA. Obviously, they have cool labels. I've also seen a bunch of like misspellings on labels and things like that to where, their people aren't happy, but they like the turnaround. They like the fact that they're only taking, the amount of business they can handle, essentially. Alex is basically asking if they can increase what they can handle, are they a contender, in the game? And it's kind of like what you said, though. I mean, it's for me, and I don't buy raw and grade like you do. So I like learning, kind of hearing your thoughts. I typically buy raw, sell raw, buy graded, sell graded.
Yeah. I mean, HGA kind of turned me off a little bit, to be honest. I mean, they're new, they're trying to get in. And then I see on Twitter too of, the mistakes that they're making and this kind of thing. I don't know. They're just none of the PSA and BGS, they've been around for a while. They're a proven commodity, but they might be doing the exact same thing or have the exact same quality or the exact same that PSA is. I always joke around. I say, look, I don't care who grades the card. I just look at what it's going to be financially at the end. Right. Because if I'm grading in my garage and I get the same price as PSA, then I'm fine with my garage. I just know what guys want. I've had a conversation with a guy on eBay, or I had a guy that didn't get a card. So we actually started a conversation about grading. And he was saying the same thing. He's like, the guy, certain people that collect cards just want PSA. See, you got to give them what they want. Otherwise, it's not worth it, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you have an opinion on subgrades? I mean, is it just a matter of kind of what sells?
It's a preference, right? Because PSA, if I have a PSA 10, there's no subgrades. PSA doesn't give, won't give subgrades, but a PSA 10 is all I strive for, right? Didn't HGA do subgrades and everything was less than a 9.5 and the card got a 9.5? So sometimes it'll bite you, but subgrades are fine. But then again, subgrades, sometimes when you look at it, like from BGS, if you're doing crossovers in the PSA, they're not doing crossovers anymore. So if you had a card that was really good for centering and good for, you could cross it over and get a 10. But now that would kind of be like be an indicator, right? But it's just what the people want.
Sports Card Analytics wants to know if your wife is on board with cards yet.
Yeah, that was a big thing, right? When I started doing this, I would put it down, and my wife would, I get it. And my wife would be like, what are you spending all this money on? I'm like, it's grading and it's cards and this. And I will admit, after the last couple months, when she sees what's possible, she was back on board. But of course that could change.
Oh yeah, always. It does help when they are, well, again, I kind of, to your point, it helps to do your research and know what you're doing. That's how you can stay in the hobby longer if you have a wife or you have a spouse or whatever. It's a lot easier to, if you can show them that you're making money from it, it makes it a lot easier to sell it to them.
That's the big thing, right? Happy wife, happy life. That's absolutely true, because, it's, you don't want to get there and say, hey, I got a little issue, and no, but so far, knock wood, it's been fine.
All right, guys, we're probably going to wrap up here in a few minutes. We're almost to about an hour. Let me know if you have any other questions for Andy. I'm going to try to scroll back through and to see if I missed anything in the chat here. Let's see here. Wives on board with cards. Is this a thing? If so, please talk to my wife.
Right.
Just got to keep on working at it. All right, Lowell's talking about HGA, working out the kinks, limiting the production. Which card behind SCI is favorite? Also tell him the Sixers lost. Is this your son right here? Is this Tyler?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, I just saw they lost. Yeah, you know what? No Joel Embiid. If they could have won today, I would have really, but they'll be fine. I think my favorite card, well, it's twofold, okay? I know my son's favorite card is the one that he bought at a card store for, I don't know, I think it was $30, is a Steph Curry rookie behind me. And the interesting story behind this Steph Curry is it's the only the card with him actually playing basketball, because his other rookie cards are, it's just his face, right, or whatever. Yeah. So that was, I think my favorite card is, it's got to be, you can't see it behind me, but it's a Mike Schmidt rookie card. It's a PSA 3, but because it's, it kind of brings back to my childhood a little bit. And then the other one I think is just for fun was I bought a blaster from my local card store, and I pulled a Purple Wave Zion that got a 10. So I feel I have to go back and give my local card store a little thank you for that. But tough, a lot of cards, a lot of meaning.
I'm going to address this one. Knights of Old. I've heard that you card collector people are now moving into graded comic books and have driven prices up. So I haven't bought a graded comic book in a while, but I got back in 3 years ago into sports cards and then also graded comic books. So I did buy 3 years ago. I got in fairly heavily, I guess, nothing too crazy, but I assume you're talking about prices going up here recently. Because graded comic books, that's not a new thing. That's Marvel movies and DC movies that have driven those up. And that's been happening for years. As far as like a recent trend of it moving upwards, I don't know. I'm not sure if card people are crossing over or not, or if it's just collectibles as a whole are way up. So it could just be a function of that. All right. Okay. Yeah, he asked. All right, you just keep asking. All right. I answered it. Yeah, I saw you. Any Derek Jeter in the collection? You know what? I don't have any Derek Jeter. I was looking at on a video. It's a basic card. It's a very common card. It's that 93 Topps, the 92 draft pick. It's an iconic Jeter.
I saw Project 2020s if you want to buy them.
Yeah, I can get those pretty cheap. But even those in those Jeter cards and in high PSA grades, they're it's chunk wax era stuff. I was going to grab a couple just to 20 years down the line just to have a couple of those. But how about you? Do you have any Jeters?
Yeah.
Do you have any Jeters in your collection?
I'm sure if I look through my stuff, I have some non-rookie Jeter cards. And I was joking around because when that Project 2020 came out, I was on it. Like I was buying it I should have sold them. Should have sold them all but no, I still got them.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap up here. But Andy, thanks very much for coming on. I'll definitely have you
Thanks for
back.
having me.
We'll have maybe we can do a playoff show or post playoffs or something. You're a basketball guy, so I want to stay. We'll stay on that. So yeah, let's see if we can get back together again over the next few months. That'd be fun.
Sounds great. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, and if you have not checked out Andy's channel, Sports Card Investigator, go and check it out. Hit that subscribe button, notification bell, and yeah, it's a good time. All right, guys, we will talk to you later. Have a good night.